Everybody, it's me, Steph Foxy Gamer here on Twitch, and I know it's been a while since I've streamed at all, but yeah, I've been going through some. I'm taking a break from work, I'm taking a vacation, and also because of some important event coming up that I will explain later. But for tonight, because it is Halloween season and it is also my favorite holiday, I wanted to read this. It is Ghost Hunters Adventures Club and the Secret of the Grand Chateau by Dr. Cecil H. Mills. And then I got it autographed. Ain't that cool? If there's any pictures, I will show them. Um, this is my first time reading this, so this give me a second. I also have my soda and all my little candy to get me through tonight. So 1 second. Introduction. People seem to place a lot of importance on the first sentences in books, so I'll put this right here and we can avoid that altogether. Hello, dear reader. It's your friend, your old friend, Dr. Cecil H. Mills, celebrated wordsmith and oftentimes controversial figurehead in the literary world. You're no doubt browsing through this novel in the young adult section of your bookstore, so you may not have heard of my work before. You see, I'm used to having my books placed in the adult fiction section. While I may not have done much or any research on what exactly constitutes a young adult reader, I assume that since my old books were placed above a normal human adult's shoulder height, they must have been, been unreachable to you, which is fine. My adult books are very good books, okay? So good that I was inevitably unrestricted by form or marketability. I've received carte blanche to let fire flow from my fingers and beauty seep from my pores. It was glorious, the work I could do in my 1,000-page tomes. My page was my medium and truth was my ink. Then some things happened that I don't really want to talk about, and gambling debts being what they are, I found myself taking whatever work the publishers would buy from me. So here I am, writing a mystery book for adolescent readers, and not a nuanced examination of humanity's descent into the comforting, venomous clutches of technology as the myth of the American dream fades away. I didn't even want to write that anyway. No siree. Okay, kid, go take this book up to the cashier and buy it so that we can get started. I'll wait. Are we good? Did you pay for this? Great. Now, before we begin the story of the Ghost Hunters Adventure Club, I think it's important that something be said about the Watts brothers, the co-founders of said club. Not about their past, mind you, which remains relatively unimportant and partially expunged from police records thanks to their both recently turning 18. I wish instead to talk about them now, in the present, in the hopes that it might give you a hint as to why they do what they do. Perhaps the best way to achieve that is to paint a portrait of them in a specific moment at a specific time. Currently, JJ and Valentine Watts are puttering up a frigid mountain road as fast as their decades old motorcycle beneath them will allow. JJ, the eldest by a short amount of time, is at the handlebars and is just barely keeping them from careening into a snowbank. He has a scar across the bridge of his nose. He doesn't like to talk about how he got it. Valentine, glasses fogged, clings for dear life behind him while he tracks a minute by minute loss of feeling his fingers. He had full use of them once, from most of his life, actually, riding up a winding road into increasingly inclement conditions is an abstract, rough existence that is a statistical outlier to his usual, more terrestrial, rough existence. The motorcycle will be ignored after the first couple minutes of the story, however. It's worth knowing that it was received as remuneration following a game of dice and a short fist fight. I guess that's one way to win something. Valentine shouts something that JJ either can't hear or chooses not to. Probably something about his fingers. Neither are equipped for a ride up to the higher altitude, wearing matching sweaters, for a reason that will be deduced later by someone smarter than them. They're almost to where they are going. Now, I'll stop here, as I feel that I might be outstaying my welcome, dear reader. That's probably a good primer on these brothers, which, and I can't believe I almost forgot to say this, but it's a little dubious as to whether or not they're actually brothers in the first place. But that will be definitely figured out some other time. Sorry. That all being said, it's time to begin the tale of the Watts boys and their crime solving organization, the Ghost Hunters Adventure Club. Now allow your humble narrator to see if he can shut his trap for a minute, switch elegantly to past tense, and let the brothers do the talking. Act 1. See that? Ain't that cool? So on the insignia says Ghost Hunters Adventure Club. Oh, see, here's a little picture. Chapter 1. An explosive beginning. JJ and Valentine Watts dismounted their motorcycle, remembering that they had traded the kickstand for gas at the base of the mountain. JJ laid it gingerly on the snowy pavement near a row of sports cars that might have been driven up in better weather. Before them stood the Grand Chateau, a snowy escape overlooking the cascading mountains, a short drive away from Harborville, the boys' hometown. A warm glow was emanating from its windows. Valentine immediately tucked his hands into the armpits of his powder blue sweater. Perhaps he'd keep his fingers after all. Said Valentine. What is it? Asked JJ, shaking the frost off his red sweater. Well, for a place called the Grand Chateau, don't you think it's kind of regular sized? Come on, we'll be late, said JJ. If someone pays us to solve the mystery of the regular sized chateau, then we'll go and solve the mystery of the regular sized chateau. Do you think this guy is serious about the ghost? Asked Valentine. Does it make a difference? To me, yeah. I don't know how to do the different voices for these two, so yeah. JJ warmed up his hands by rubbing them and cupping them over his mouth. He slung his leather satchel around his shoulder. He's serious enough to pay us, and that's all that matters to me. Valentine looked up at the sky, knowing the approach of dark and billowing clouds. Looks ominous, he said. They did their secret handshake and walked towards the chateau. Now, what is their secret handshake? I don't know. Make one up. After snaking their way through some bellhops and luggage carriers, the two entered the relative warmth of the Grand Chateau lobby. Inside, they found a wide, regal reception room decorated wall to wall with mounted game animal heads, hunting knickknacks, and comfy couches. There was a painting there at the far end of the room, a gargantuan one of a man cradling an ornate hunting rifle, a bested black bear lying lifeless at his feet. Chateau patrons milled around, some lounging and some returning from their ski trips down the mountain. It was barely noon, and the bartender was already handing out complimentary glasses of wine as she laughed with the hotel patrons. She had short red hair and apparently affable demeanor, as far as either of them could tell from this far away. The boys paused for a moment to stop shivering, then located the front desk and stood patiently behind an older man with a ponytail and sunglasses wearing nothing but a bath towel. What kind of place is this? Listen, said the man to the clerk, I'm not happy that I'm currently in a hotel lobby in a towel, and that up until a few seconds ago I didn't even have the towel. But sometimes a man takes his breakfast tray out of his bedroom without thinking too far into the future, and sometimes forgets to bring his hotel key. The clerk had her nose buried in a novel, apparently close in age to the brothers and wearing a pair of glasses that could make Valentine jealous. She gave nods and at regular intervals to create the illusion of sympathy. I'm trying to figure out if I could just get a new. Without looking up, the woman handed the man a new key. He marched off in a huff, snagging a glass of complimentary wine for the trip upstairs. JJ sidled up to the counter and produced a business card. This was his time to shine. How do you do? He said. My name is J.J. Watts, and the less handsome gentleman behind me is my brother and close confidant, Valentine Watts. Together we make up the Ghost Hunters Adventure Club, Auberville's foremost crime-fighting and mystery-solving duo. J.J. paused for reaction. The young woman gave him a Valentine cursory glance before returning to her book. He retracted the business card, peering over the desk to better see the woman engrossed in her novel. He coughed politely, trying to get her attention. What what are you reading? No, you're not. Yeah, replied the young woman. Excuse me? Brothers. You're not brothers. Taken aback, JJ furrowed his brow. Now wait a minute. Look, said the woman, closing her book and adjusting her glasses. You have black hair and brown eyes, and your brother has blonde hair and blue eyes. It's rare, but not impossible. Then I noticed that you have detached earlobes while your brother doesn't. Another genetic similarity. If you want to play the Punnett square game to even the odds, I can see if either of you can roll your tongue. Hey, slow down, said JJ. There's plenty of different ways we could be brothers. We might be adopted siblings for all we know. Right, see, that was what I was looking for. Instead of maintaining that you were brothers, you brought up more hypotheticals. You've been thinking about what someone would say if they accused you not being brothers. She leaned forward, a curt smile appearing on her lips. That combined with the matching sweaters, which I'll add, your friend forgot to take the price tag off. Valentine ripped off the tag dangling from his wrist and stuck it inside his back pocket, embarrassed. Leads me to deduce that you're not actually brothers, and you're probably just doing this for a bit, or the brand. Seems like you guys are trying to make money. JJ stood there in shocked silence. And the book is Bones of Desire by Wallace P. Gross, said the woman as she leaned back and began reading it again. Real page turner of a sleuth story. JJ senses returned to him and he pointed a finger at the woman. Now listen here, you little. Whoa, let me apologize for my dear brother, said Valentine, jumping between the two. He was raised by wild animals and failed out of finishing school because he started a fight club. Did you say you were reading Wallace P. Gross? Hmm? He's who we're here to see. Oh, yeah, said a woman. He writes out of the chateau. His stuff's pretty good, too, if a little on the nose. JJ folded his arms and scuffed. I'm sure he's fine, and he's a fine author, but he's no Dr. Cecil H. Mills. Now there's a little letter pusher. Eh, sorry, letter pusher. I'm sorry if I'm having trouble reading. Gentlemen, said a voice from behind them. The brothers turned around to see an older woman in a sharp business suit and a sour look. Her lapel was embroidered with the logo of the establishment. She extended her manicured hand in greeting. Madame Foyner, hotelier of the Grand Chateau, at your service. It's sort of regular sized, isn't it? Remarked Valentine. Hmm? JJ accepted the woman's hand. Please excuse my brother's manners, ma'am. He was a transitory circus performer during his formative years. JJ reproduced a business card. JJ Watts, the better half of the Watts brothers and lead investigator of the Ghost Hunters Adventure Club. Charmed to make your acquaintance. I'm glad you two were able to make it in before the blizzard struck, she said, accepting and regarding the card with a manner that seemed to give them more credit than they deserved. If you were out there for another couple minutes, you surely would have frozen to death. Danger is a core tenet of the Ghost Hunter's adventure lifestyle, said JJ. As is neglecting to check the weather report before making a long distance trip, added Valentine. Now pardon my manners, said Madame Foyner, but I couldn't help but overhear you were looking for a Mr. Wallace P. Gross. Yes, said Valentine. He asked us to come up here to discuss business. Very well, then. Let me see how. Let me show you to his study. Ah, God, I cannot read. Sorry. Madame Foyner led the boys up to the grand staircase at the end of the lobby and down a long hallway. JJ tried to sneak in one last hateful glare to the woman at the front desk, but her nose was still buried in her book. Mr. Gross has been a guest of ours for a long while, Madame Foyner told him. He always comes up to the chateau to work on his mystery novels, which you might know have garnered him worldwide acclaim. He always comes up here, asked JJ. Yes, he's a bit of a superstitious type. He wrote his first novel here decades ago and refuses to work anywhere else. He's been at the latest manuscript for the past 3 years. The hotelier stopped at a large set of wooden doors and turned to the boys. I must warn you, however, that Mr. Gross has got on in his years and has become a little eccentric. How so? Asked Valentine. Well, to start, he just called up two ghost hunters to meet him at a hotel in the mountains. Ghost hunters and super sleuths, JJ cut in. We'll do landscaping too if there's a paycheck in it. Right. Well, just be warned. The double door swung open with an audible squeak, and in the center of the room was an old man with frazzled gray hair that stood on end. He stood there, looking distinguished with a tweed vest and knotted bow tie. The Ghost Hunters Adventure Club, he explained. Please, please come in. Madame Foyner took her leave as JJ and Valentine entered the study, their senses flooding with the smell of rolled tobacco and old hardcovers. The room was lined with bookshelves and enormous arched windows overlooking the snowscape outside. Wallace P. Gross walked a circle around the room, gesticulating with an artistic flourish. J.J. and Valentine Watts, Auberville's finest brother detectives and private investigators. No job too small or too great. You've read our website, I see, said JJ. I have. You two are the brightest minds that Auberville has to offer, yes. Either that or the most search engine optimized, said Valentine. I'm sorry, what? JJ coughed. He meant to say that we're unparalleled in our brightness. We're brightness all stars, the brightest, too bright, some might argue. Wallace rubbed his chin, thinking, right. You'll have to do then. In that case, I must give you the tour. Wallace P. Gross grabbed his coat and started forward. The boys followed him dutifully, and the three stepped out into the hall. First on the docket, Wallace began. I'd like to introduce you to the Grand Chateau. It's a place that I've called home for the past 3 years now, and a place I've called home many times throughout my life and career. Built over a century ago, this sanctuary was initially meant for Auberville's wealthy elite and urban socialites to unwind from their busy city lives and indulge in their opium fueled Kabbalistic indulgences. JJ and Valentine shared a glance. They had an non opium fueled Kabbalistic indulgence too, although that's less important. The trio rounded a corner and walked into a room filled floor to ceiling with books. Gigantic tomes lay stacked on tables throughout, and from the many stained glass windows the boys could see snow coming down at a steadier and steadier rate. The library, Wallace said. That starts with an L, mind you. The boys, while maybe not smart enough to understand many things, were at least smart enough to know that the word library started with the letter L. They exchanged a confused look. Wallace went on. Home to a variety of first editions, encyclopedia, religious texts, and so forth. When not in my study, it is here that I do all my research for my pantheon of best-selling and award-winning mystery novels. It looks very bookly, JJ commented. Astute observation. Please, please, there's more to see. Wallace assured the boys down the stairs out through the back side of the chateau. They walked on out into what must have been a vast and beautiful garden, were not covered in snow. JJ and Valentine immediately began shivering in their store-bought non-woolen sweaters. Wallace didn't appear to mind the cold. Valentine could see the mountain drop off into a sheer cliff just beyond a winter-worn forest, and a green storage shed stood in the distance. Clearing snow in front of its doorway was whom he had presumed to be the groundskeeper. Even from this distance, he could tell that this man stood a head taller than the average man. The courtyard, he said. That starts with the letter C. Are you remembering all this? It's really cold out here, said Valentine, his teeth beginning to chatter. A smile spread across Wallace P. Gross's face. Perfect. The boys followed Wallace down a snowy path. An old woman in a fur coat and black scarf sat on a bench next to the stone statue of an angel. She didn't seem to mind the cold either. Looking up at them, her face turned from a scowl to a deeper, more pronounced scowl. If it isn't my intellectually impotent ex-husband, the woman said. Don't look her in the eyes, boys, Wallace warned, the smile sliding from his face. You'll turn it a stone. JJ and Valentine glanced at Wallace, trying to assess the validity of his statement. JJ, Valentine, I'd like to introduce you to my ex-wife and perennial thorn in my side, Marcella P. Gross. Wait, interrupted Valentine. You have the same middle initial? I took it in the Same way I took half this man's fortune in the divorce, snapped Marcella. Valentine gulped. Your sense of humor remains sharp, said Wallace. Whose soul did you sell for it? What? Said JJ, trying to diffuse the situation. What, are you doing out here in the snow, ma'am? It's getting pretty cold out here. She wanted to be in a place where her heart felt warm, no doubt. What are you doing out here, Wallace? Finally looking for a spot to keel over and die? I'll do. I'll die when I'm good and ready, you frigid old ice queen. Come on, boys. Wallace marched towards the chateau. Whew, kind of throwing darts at each other over here. It was nice to meet you, ma'am, said Valentine. Get lost, Jack. They entered again through the back side of the chateau where Wallace led them down another hallway. I hope that this isn't being too forward, sir, JJ said. But what's your ex-wife doing here at the chateau? You're asking questions that aren't important right now, Mr. Gross replied. He paused for a moment as if either he were either lost in thought or his old man programming had encountered a bug. That's funny. She was sitting on the bench where we first met. He took his head and pressed forward. Nearly there. Come along. They arrived at a wide room with a vaulted ceiling. A huge chandelier hung above an intricately woven carpet. Chairs and tables, presumably used for special occasions, were stacked in a corner and also placed haphazardly throughout the room. The Grand Ballroom, or Ballroom for short, starts with the letter B. It's beautiful, isn't it? Lovely, said JJ out of politeness. I didn't want to show. No, I didn't want to show it for any other reason. Then I thought it was nice. Great for dancing. Maybe you two ought to cut a rug in here or your free time. We will. Put that on the docket, said JJ. Wallace P. Gross nodded vigorously, his wire-like hair swaying back and forth. Nearly finished with the tour, gents. This way. In the hallway, JJ and Valentine hung back, just out of the earshot of the Arthur. Are you getting kind of a, I don't know, a not all there vibe from Wallace? Whispered Valentine. Was it the casual socialite cannibalistic ritual dialogue or the ping pong match of death threats between him and Marcella that made you think that? JJ sighed. Look, I'm not personally enamored, but the situation at hand either, and I know what you're about to say. This isn't right, said Val. See? That. I knew you were going to say that. JJ replied. Look, finances being what they are, if we want to get if we want to eat tonight, we're going to have to at least listen to the guy. Valentine shook his head. I don't like that. I know you don't, but if you want to make it into detective business, you're going to have to take a few bum cases. They followed the old man back to the chateau lobby and up the stairs to Wallace's study. He closed the door behind them with another squeak from the door's hinges and stood in the center of the room. Final stop of the tour, he said. Study. Starts with an S. The boy stood there, waiting for Wallace to say something more. After a moment of wordless smiling, JJ broke the silence. So, how would you like us to help, Mr. Gross? Ah, yes, said Wallace, snapping back to attention. As you boys know, I needed the employ of Harborville's finest detectives for a reason. You see, he said, his fingers beginning to tremble, I'm being haunted. Right, ghost, said JJ. My brother and I are well versed in ghost detection and expulsion. However, do keep in mind that we charge extra for poltergeist and ghost in corporal form. You pay out of pocket if we have to bring in either an old priest or a young priest. Take more pride in listening rather than speaking, young man. Wallace's face grew grim. It might do you some good down the line. The boys looked at each other confused. The other paced around the room, peering out of his window into what had turned into a threatening blizzard outside. I've known for some time now that the ghost has been watching me, watching over my latest work. For the past 3 years, I've been consumed by this obsession, this specter, unable to finish my manuscript. He returned to the center of the room and addressed the boys directly. He heaved a heavy sigh. Now, I fear my time is short, for I put together everything I can to see clearly. There are a great many more mysteries in the Grand Chateau than you'd initially believe. And just as he finished his sentence, Wallace P. Gross's head exploded. The heck? What do you mean exploded? Ow! It literally exploded. Oh my god. I cannot make this up. It literally exploded. Um, yeah, this is interesting. Chapter 2, Deputy Park, Auberville Sheriff's Department. Deputy Park burst through the double doors of the Grand Chateau and immediately turned to close them against the roaring blizzard outside. Once he was satisfied that he'd bested the doors in fair and open combat, he kicked the snow off his boots and brushed the icicles from the end of his mustache. Unzipping his Auberville Sheriff's Department winter jacket, he marched up the large staircase at the end of the room where a large crowd of onlookers had gathered. Out of the way, Auberville Sheriff's Department, he shouted, parting through the sea of skiers and hotel patrons, grouped shoulder to shoulder. Finally making his way to the front of the crowd, the deputy found the source of the commotion. Not you two again, Deputy Park groaned. Deputy Park, our old friend, we meet again, said JJ. He and his brother were sitting in the doorway to the study, wiping their faces and clothes with Grand Chateau monogram towels. Madame Foyner appeared before the deputy. Wait, you know these two? Who are you? Asked Park. I'm the hotelier of this establishment, the one who telephoned you, she said. Deputy Park's eyes narrowed. What's a hotelier? I'm the hotel manager. Right, Deputy Park replied, straightening up. Well, it's a wonder your call made it through with the blizzard outside and all. He motioned to the brothers on the floor. And why is a ghost hunter adventure club here? Wherever they go, trouble follows. We follow the trouble, you dingus. JJ rolled his eyes. Oh, is that true? Said Park. Because every case I run into you two, on goes belly out from go. JJ shook his head. That's not true. What about the old abandoned mill? That wasn't our fault. The Auberville bank heist. Anyone could have mistaken an old lady for a bank robber. What about the counterfeiters of Pirates Quo? Hey, Valentine cut in. Didn't we save your life on that one? You did, Deputy Park grumbled. But I wouldn't have been tied up in that warehouse in the first place if it weren't for you two bumbling idiots. He folded his arms and kicked up the carpet. Still, Mrs. Park says to send you her regards and thanks. JJ couldn't help himself but smile. Deputy Park readdressed Madame Foyner. So, what have we got here? JJ shot his thumb behind him toward the study. Dead writer, he said. Deputy Park turned back to JJ and shocked. Sweet holidays, boys. What have you gotten yourselves into? I called you as soon as I heard the gunshot, Madame Fournier said. I found these two young gentlemen in the corner screaming when I arrived. Deputy Park surveyed the scene. In front of him was indeed a dead rider with an exploded head. At the opposite end of the room was a shattered window. Snow was starting to cover the mahogany desk in the center of the room. So, what happened here? Valentine answered. After the guy talked to us for a while, he took us back to his study. Then we heard a gunshot, saw his head explode, and then that glass over there shattered. Did you get eyes on the shooter? Asked Deputy Park. Sorry, said JJ. There was a foreign substance in our eyes that prevented us from utilizing the gift of sight. What was that? Rider blood, said Valentine. Park surveyed the scene once again, brushing his mustache, with his fingers in deep thought. I've solved the mystery, he explained. Wait, really? Asked Valentine, genuinely perplexed. Sure I have, he said, pointing toward the crime scene. The broken window suggests that the bullet came from the outside, ending the life of our dear writer friend here. He stepped over the body and walked to the window, where the blizzard roared in full force. Our killer ran away from the scene of the crime and into worsening snow conditions where he'll no doubt freeze to death and die. I'll have Harborville Sheriff's Department roll out here with their ice picks to excavate the Perpsicle, avenging the death of Charles Bakilski over here. The crowd stood silent. When no one objected, Park marched to the front of the room. Well, just gotta calling this one over to headquarters so we can get a slab van to pick up Hiroki murdered Kami. We'll be out of here in time for dinner. He spoke a few words into his walkie-talkie and waited for a response. Nothing. He tried again, only to hear static. Right, said Park. New plan. Apparently the blizzard conditions that no doubt froze our mystery murder have cut off radio communication with the outside world, which also means that the mountain roads once used to reach this chateau are now rendered inoperable. Looks like we're all stuck here until the roads are clear. A shocked gasp ran through the crowd. Oh, come on, said Park. We all get to spend the weekend in a snowy mountain resort together, and there's only one dead body here, which we're all barely have to see. The killer's long gone. We don't know that, JJ shook his head. The killer could be in here right now. Young man, I will karate chop you in the throat, Deputy Park warned. In any case, the halls will be patrolled by myself, Deputy Jihan Park of the Auberville Sheriff's Department. He made a sweeping gesture to the crowd. No one gets killed on my watch. The crowd of hotel patrons erupted in chaos and accusatory questions directed toward Deputy Park of the Auberville Sheriff's Department. Madame Foyner jumped between him and the growing mob, trying to defuse the situation. Please, she pleaded. I know everyone here is upset. It goes without saying that all of your rooms will be complimentary for the duration of the blizzard. The idea of the free hotel rooms quieted the crowd down a bit. A woman with short hair stepped out of the throng. Valentine recognized her as the bartender who was serving drinks when they entered the chateau earlier. Plus, you'll have more complimentary wine after dinner, she said in the thick Bostonian accent. I don't know how to do that. Everyone in the crowd shrugged, and Madame Fournier breathed a sigh of relief. Now wait just a second, yelled JJ, jumping in to join the crowd. My name is J.J. Watts, and the man still picking Reiner brain out of his ears is my brother and indispensable ally, Mr. Valentine Watts. Together, we formed the entity of Ghost Hunters Adventure Club, Auberville's best and arguably only ghost hunting and crime solving organization. Here we go, groaned Deputy Park. At the time of his death, my brother and I were in the employ of Dr. Wallace P. Gross, and we will continue to honor his employment request until his killer is brought to justice. And because of this, I will not rest. He turned his attention to Madame Foyner. Until my brother and I are upgraded to a two-bed suite with meals included. Madame Foyner sighed. Fine. Um, I like my own room upgraded as well, said a voice. Everyone turned to see that it was the man with the sunglasses and ponytail from earlier. No, the hotelier said the hotelier. He shrugged. Worth a shot. Madame Foyner began funneling the crowd out of the hallway down and back down the stairs. Please, everyone, give us some space to clean up a little. I'll have our groundskeeper see what we can do to tidy up here. You all go enjoy a drink in the lounge downstairs. JJ and Valentine joined the crowd in their march, avoiding further questioning from Deputy Park. On the way down, they spotted the groundskeeper walking the opposite direction down the stairs. He did, in fact, stand a head taller than everyone else. Are you guys enjoying this? I hope you are, because this is already interesting. I did like this so far. It's great. All right, one more chapter because we got chapter 3 of the bookcase. Yeah, we can get to chapter 4. The real mystery we should be solving is how they got these towels to be so soft, said JJ, rolling up and stuffing as many Grand Chateau monogrammed towels in his satchel as he could. They were in their promised two-bed suite, an all-oak affair adorned in vaguely rustic knickknacks and landscape paintings of the mountain. Valentine peered out of the windows, which would have looked out down into the mountain road that led them here were it not for the howling gale outside. We gotta be careful on the way out, said JJ. I gave the front desk lady a fake credit card for Incidentals, but she's a sharp one. I didn't help by making the last four digits 6969. Nice. And nice. He looked over at Valentine, whose mind seemed to be lost in the snow outside. What's the matter? You used to love playing steal the hotel amenities. Do you think Park was right? Asked Valentine. I want to trust his opinion on what to get for breakfast, let alone what he thinks about a murder investigation, said JJ. He belly flopped onto the bed and wrapped himself in it. Hide thread count sheets. But that doesn't matter now. What do you mean? Asked Valentine. I mean that our bankroll had his head exploded. There's no payoff for us other than free room and board and whatever you and I can carry out of here undetected. Come on, JJ, you have at least be a little curious about what's going on here. Oh, I'm sure curious. I'm curious about how the upper crust lives. I'm curious to know a weekend without want or need. I'm curious to see if there are any loose gems or precious stones that can be pried and pocketed for later sale. He got up to examine a painting on the wall, knowing that it was held in place by a security latch. I'm not, however, curious about who shot Wallace P. Gross from a sniper's position in a snowy tundra. That's the thing, said Valentine, turning his attention away from the snow. I'm not so sure where the shot came from. He sat on the edge of his own bed, trying to remember back to when the head exploded. We even told it to Deputy Park. We heard the shot, the head exploded, we got rider blood in our eyes, then we heard the glass shatter. If the shot came from outside, we would have heard the glass shatter first. All right, Sherlock, if the shot didn't come from outside, then where did it come from? I don't know, said Valentine, pointing to his eyes. Rider's blood? Case closed then. Guess we gotta go back to a pampered weekend in a snowy mountain escape. Valentine furrowed his brow. If I could just get back to the scene of the crime, I could find out for sure. This isn't going to get out of your head, is it? Said JJ. No, and I won't stop talking about it, effectively ruining your weekend plans. All right, JJ sighed. If we can sneak in there tonight and look around, will you let me enjoy the rest of the weekend? I'll even help you strip some copper wire out of the walls. Then it's settled, said JJ. The Ghost Hunters Adventure Club is back on the case. If only for tonight. The two did their secret handshake to seal the deal. The boys waited until midnight before they left the room with JJ's trusted lockpick kit. By this time, they assumed Deputy Park would be done with his rounds, and they made their way from their room, down the elevator, and over to Wallace's study, or unperpetuated. Bleh. JJ knelt on the floor and unfurled his kit while Valentine kept watch on the end of the hall. Selecting the right tense tension near scraping tool was an art that JJ had long ago mastered. He inserted tools ready to work. The door cracked open. Right, said JJ. Another lock successfully picked. Valentine abandoned his lookout post and joined JJ, where they opened the door and entered with caution, cringing at the squeak of the door as it continued to alert everyone in the hotel to their whereabouts. The boy of Wallace P. Groves was missing. The body of Wallace P. Groves was missing. The boy stood there for a moment, trying to deduce what had happened. Guess they must have moved him, Valentine concluded. Unless he wasn't even dead in the first place and his headless body now roams these hallways searching for a new head. Valentine shot a glance at his brother. I mean, what if? They stepped over the bloody spot where Wallace's body had been and stood in the center of the room. It was covered in a layer of snow thanks to the broken window at the opposite end of the study. All right, Inspector hates fun, said JJ. Work your magic. Valentine went to the window and examined the shards of glass at the bottom of the frame. See? I was right. Valentine pointed to the floor beneath the window pane. If the shot had come from outside, there would have been glass fragments on this side of the window. Instead, it must have been shattered from inside while you and I were blinded by rider's blood. But why would they do that? Maybe to throw us off the trail. To make us think the killer went off and died in a snowstorm. Maybe to make us not wonder if the kill came from inside the house. JJ was shivering from the cold. Look around. We're in a tiny writer's study. Where else could the shot have come from? Valentine adjusted his glasses, examining the room. He walked over to a large oak desk that stood at the centerpiece of the room. That's odd, he said. What? Valentine brushed away the layer of snow that covered the desk, revealing a stack of books next to Wallace's typewriter, and read aloud Harborville, a tourist guide, an oral history of Grand Mountain, advanced spelunking techniques. Was this research material for Wallace's new book? JJ walked over to the desk and opened the drawers. You ever know a writer type to break a lock and then empty out his drawers? He asked. Why? Because these locks are broken and it looks like the drawers have been emptied. Wouldn't Wallace have kept his manuscript here? Guess so, replied Valentine. JJ had a thought. He went over to the blood spot on the floor and faced his brother. Val, if you and I got covered in Ryder's blood, then that means his head must have exploded towards us. That means that the bullet must have struck from behind. JJ turned around and examined the wall by the entrance to the study, feeling over the wallpaper with his fingers. There, he exclaimed, before remembering that someone might hear them. This is where the bullet is lodged. He pointed into a small hole near the frame of the door. Almost went through one of us. The bullet flew between our heads before we got brain bits in our eyes. JJ stood by the bullet hole and turned around. Closing one eye and pointing with his finger, he traced the trajectory of the bullet. It looks like the shot came from that bookshelf over there. Valentine turned to examine the floor to ceiling oak bookshelf filled to the breaking point with leather-bound volumes. What does that mean? It means we caught the culprit. Cuff him. Val, this bookcase will never kill again. If what you're saying is true, then there must be something behind this bookcase. Come on and help me. With what? Pull on some books. One might open this thing. You gotta be kidding. That only happens in the movies, said JJ as he pulled on a book that caught it latch and caused the entire bookcase to swing open on a hinge. He shrugged. I stand corrected. Valentine inspected the bookcase and in the darkened pathway behind it. I wonder where it goes. Me too. Well, shame that the mystery of the hidden passageway will never get solved. Come on, Val, let's pack it up. What do you mean? We found where the killer took the shot. We gotta investigate. JJ massaged a scar across his nose. Not happening, bud. I played unpaid detective for long enough, and to be truthful with you, I don't even think an honest salary would get me to go down that hallway. I'm going whether you're coming or not, said Valentine. Feel free to hang out alone in the spooky study with the blood stain. Fine, fine, said JJ. But this turns out to be a ghost with a gun. I'll never forgive you. Val led JJ past the bookcase and into a stone passageway barely large enough for them to sidle through. Moisture from the air had frosted onto the stones around them. They could see their breath. I think I got a cobweb in my mouth, said JJ. This passageway must have run through the building, said Valentine, or maybe it leads to another exit on the other side of the chateau. But why was it built? Walls did say the building was constructed over 100 years ago. Maybe it was for the opium, said JJ, running into more spiderwebs. The boys continued down the passageway, traversing over cracked stone and raw woodwork. They could hear faint voices above and around them. The passageway split into different directions just ahead. Which way do we go? Asked JJ. I guess we followed the sound of voices. JJ sighed. Ahead of them, a slide up at the top of the passageway cast a beam of light through the dust. That's where it's coming from, said Valentine. Give me a boost. JJ cupped his hands for Valentine to put his foot into and lifted him. It's a grate, I think, said Valentine. He peered through the slat to see that he was looking into the ballroom walls had shown them on the tour. In the center of the room were two figures. Peering closer, he made out Wallace's ex-wife and the ponytailed man with sunglasses. What's happening? Asked JJ, struggling to keep Valentine's aloft. Shh. Marcella P. Gross and the ponytail guy seem to be mad about something. Valentine listened intently. The ponytail man was pacing around the room, his arms gesticulating widely. Marcella was sitting on a chair by a banquet table, coldly smoking a cigarette indoors. She took a long drag and puffed it in his direction. People have been suspicious of us, she said. They've always been suspicious of us. Well, you just keep a level head, Ponytail said, sweating profusely. If you and me just keep quiet and lay low, we'll get through this just fine. Something's juicy is happening, Valentine whispered down to JJ. I'm losing feeling in my fingers, JJ replied. Valentine turned his attention back to the conversation happening in the ballroom. Let's make sure you're not seen together for the rest of our stay here, Ponytail said. That should be enough to throw people off the scent. What do you mean by... what do you want me to do then? Asked Marcella. Should I go into the open mourning for my ex-husband? She put out her cigarette directly on the table. Maybe wear more black than you usually do. That couldn't hurt. Valentine looked down again at JJ. I think these two might have had something to do with Wallace's murder. JJ grunted. I'm dying down here. Let's couple more seconds. We might find out something more useful. Just then, JJ heard the telltale squeak of the door to Wallace P. Gross's office. Someone's coming. Ponytail snapped to attention. What was that? Uh-oh, Valentine said. JJ, be quiet. Instead of replying, JJ's grip broke and Valentine came tumbling down in a loud thud that echoed down the passageway. Hey, who is that? Came the voice of a man from the ballroom. Valentine got up off of JJ and dusted himself off. What the hell? He whispered. We were about to solve the mystery. We gotta go, said JJ. Come on. JJ led them back the dark hallway, shimmying as fast as they could and ignoring whatever spider webs got into their mouths. A hand reached out of the darkness and struck JJ directly on the nose, sending him falling backward and onto Valentine. Ow! JJ looked up to find the young woman from the front desk earlier today. She looked scared, ready to strike again. What are you doing here? She demanded. Why did you hit me in the nose? JJ demanded back. What are you doing here? Also demanded Valentine. The woman lowered her fist. I started wondering about the murder because the deputy's assessment didn't add up. I came up to the study and found that the bookcase was open, so I walked in and found you two guys here. It didn't add up for us either, said Valentine. The glass was shattered from inside the room, and so the bullet didn't come from outside. That's what I thought. You said you saw his head explode and then you heard the glass shatter. That's the same deduction we came to. Look, everyone, interrupted JJ. I'm really glad we're all bonding over fine detective work, but we just made a lot of noise and, I think, made some hotel patrons aware of our existence back there. We should probably make ourselves scarce. JJ sidled past them toward the study, stopped, and turned to the woman. Also, we're still not cool, you and me. They arrived at the study, closed the bookcase, and headed toward the hallway, closing the large double doors behind them. Great, JJ pinched his nose to stem the flow of blood. Now we just get back to our rooms, shut the door, and put this horror show of a day to bed. Hey, if anyone's out there, you should know I have a gun and I'm trained in the art of shooting it. It's Deputy Park, Valentine hissed. Down the long end of the hallway, its shadow rounded the corner. We have to hide. Follow me, said the front desk clerk. She dashed forward and led them down the grand staircase. She dove under the reception desk in the lobby, and the boys followed close behind. A moment later, a beam of light shone over the desk. We're still not cool, JJ gasped, trying to catch his breath. And you're certain you heard a commotion from over here? Came a voice they recognized as Deputy Parks. Clear as day, said another. That sounds like the ponytail guy, whispered Valentine. You mean Mr. Newbury? Said the young woman. Will you two please quiet down before we get caught? JJ hissed. Hey, killer! Deputy Park called. If you're here, please come out with your hands up. It's far too spooky right now to be searching every nook and cranny for you. After a few moments of silence, the flashlight sweep stopped. Well, sorry, bud. No killers here, Deputy Park concluded. Might be a ghost, but that's well above my pay grade. Anything spiritually paranormal is something I guarantee you I don't want to handle. The trio waited until long after the footsteps faded off into the distance before they made their way to the elevator. When they reached their floor, JJ pointed at the young woman. Forget our faces, he said. He and Valentine walked to the safety of their own room. Valentine closed the door behind them. That was far too close, said JJ, wrapping himself in a blanket. There's no way you were ever getting me to do something like that again. Don't you care at all about that the killer's still on the loose? Oh, short of shady deal was going on with Marcella and what's his name, the Newberry fellow. Please, Valentine, do us both a favor and shut up your brain off for a minute. It's been a long day and I'm eager to solve the mystery of what's it like to get 8 hours of sleep. Wait, said Valentine. Why didn't the study door squeak when we closed it? Okay, that is the end of chapter 3. And chapter 4 is kind of long, so I'm going to end this one here for tonight. Um, Let me know what you guys think. Do you want me to continue reading this? What do you guys think so far? This is from Game Grumps. You can find it on their merch site. I will add in the description. I think it's worth the read. I do like reading mystery novels like this. I'm trying to get into frame. There you go. Okay. I got this one. And I also have the other book available to read next. But yeah, sorry about the voices and stuff. I'm not really used to character changing, but please let me know what you guys think. I will post this on my YouTube channel as fast as I can. And I am going to go for tonight and enjoy more Game Grumps on their live stream before my headphones fall off. So thanks again. Don't forget to follow me here on Twitch under Steph Foxy Gamer and also on YouTube under Steph Foxy. I have a lot of review stuff and lots of other fun things. So yeah, don't forget to follow me there. My headphones do not want to stay up like this. And thanks again, and I'll see you guys later. All right, have a lovely evening. Good night.